Do you know what I think it is? I think you have the American right, and the rest of the world is left of that.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm considered a lefty here, but I'm considered a righty in the UK. But it depends on the issue. Like I would say a classic liberal who is fiscally conservative, socially progressive. I think that's where I am. I think tax is too high and we should have smaller government. But I also like the fact we have a National Health Service.
So something of a Thatcherite, in a way.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. I know that is a dirty word these days, well, particularly in the media class. I mean, when Thatcher died, it was really interesting to watch from the outside. Because, American conservatives venerate her. They shouldn't, because there's a lot of things that they would probably disagree with Thatcher on. But watching the reaction in the UK was pretty interesting.
Well, some people celebrated her because they
quite aggressively.
They think she's a Nazi.
Like Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, right? That was what was. Didn't they try to make that number one? Wasn't the number one song?
I can't remember.
You might want to fact check that one. There was some Thatcher related song that the attempt was to make it number one. I'm not sure if they succeeded, but I was like, man, that's a pretty aggressive response to somebody who, these days, and particularly, in the world of American conservatives, would be rather mild.
They did. It got to number 2. Now we've got number 1.
Look at that.
Yeah.
But I think the difference in the UK is you can be politically aligned, but the circles of the Venn diagram can overlap. Whereas in the US, they can't touch anymore.
Not these days.
Every topic, your position is one or the other.
The polarization of America and the polarization, I think the UK is probably lagging a little behind, thankfully, because obviously nobody wants that. But I think it really has been the culture war issues. Yeah. And when you see people like Ron DeSantis in Florida, who I don't think really cares about these things very much, but has a larger stage that he wants to be on, is really exploiting them. What is the purpose? And if somebody say, what is your political ideology? Mine has always been effectively anti-communism in 1970s and 80s ways. Because I studied, my interest was always Soviet history and the rest of it, not from a place of I like these guys, quite the opposite. But DeSantis, they passed a bill for a Victims of Communism Day in Florida. And it was part of the curriculum, school curriculum. Now, this is something that I would be instinctually on that side, but I don't like the exploitation of this stuff for political reasons. And people you go to these rallies and people are fist pumping and they know nothing about the issue, but they know what side they're on. It's like the old communist thing was tell me, where do you stand? Sag mir, wo du stehst, as the Germans said. What side are you on? And that's what the culture war has become in the US, and I really can't stand it. I really, really don't, because I'm I'm effectively on the same side as these people in a lot of this stuff, particularly when it comes to, for lack of a better phrase, wokeism, which is, I think, has been a poison in so many ways. But unfortunately, the people you find arguing the same points as you are not often the people you want to go to a party with or hang around with. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah,
But that's I meant that because it's coming to. I see it in the UK quite a bit too.
Yeah, it's happening, but we haven't had the same explosion, and I think the debate around certain issues isn't so divided. COVID was a great example. Whether you were kind of pro or anti-vaccines had nothing really to do with whether you were conservative or Labour.
That's a weird thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here, and look, I know there were a bunch of Republican people who probably did get vaccinated, but the general kind of consensus was Democrats were, and it because you here in New York, I see a lot more masks. I didn't see fuck all masks in Austin recently.
It's really funny, yeah.
So
it's a social signal, yeah.
Well, yeah. So, but the kind of general pro-lockdown, general pro-vaccine seems to be very much a Democratic side of thing, whereas the general kind of skepticism anti was Republican. That's not a UK thing. There wasn't conservatives.
Yeah, and it's kind of not a Europe thing either. Because the thing that I thought was so odd about it was that Americans were discussing this and blaming. Look, I could go on for 5 hours about the things you can blame Donald Trump for, who I'm very much not a fan of and have a 5-year record of not being a fan of. But there was an instinct at a certain point to blame him for everything. He's an easy scapegoat. He asked for it. But that point when it came to these people who oppose lockdowns and, this is a very uniquely American thing, that was the frame. And I was like, are you guys looking at the riots that are happening in the Netherlands, in France, in Berlin? I mean, Berlin was like a big hotspot of like, rejection of this kind of quote unquote authoritarian regime of COVID lockdowns. And it's like, no, this is not, we put a uniquely American spin on it, and we're very good at that. But it's not a uniquely an American phenomenon. And of course, prior to COVID, that was the terrain of the left, to be vaccine skeptics. That was typically the kind of goop, that what's her name? What's her name? Gwyneth Paltrow?
Oh, yeah.
That kind of universe, of kind of hippie anti-vaccine thing, was always considered to be something that was specifically found in the left. And God, did that change in the past couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, the divisiveness here is really weird, and it's kind of frustrating because it's become so divisive that, again, you get into particular subjects, and you can't even get to a civil debate about these points now. It's like, you're a cuck, or you're a statist, or you're a fucking moron, you're an idiot, you got low IQ. It's like, can we just even discuss it? Like recently, I'm quite interested in the Second Amendment. I think it's an interesting topic. I've read it, and to me, it seems open for interpretation.
Yeah.
It seems like it doesn't say every person everywhere can have any weapon they want. It seems, and I'm trying to have that conversation.
And there, of course, are limits on that, too. I mean, you cannot have, since the late 1930s, an automatic weapon. People think there's automatic weapon. No, there's semi-automatic, and that's legal. But no, we do have limitations on what people can have.
But even if you disagree with those limitations, it's like, you want to get to the point of conversation, well, where is the limitation? Can anyone have a nuke or chemical weapons? Should we put tactical nukes outside schools? And most rational, I mean, if anyone thinks anyone should have any weapon, they're a fucking idiot in my books. But most rational people have a line. It's like, okay, we agree there's a line, so we agree there should be rules. Should we have a little discussion about where that line is and what the impact is?
Yeah. I think that people, the thing that's interesting about America, and I think it's a geography thing too. I mean, you can drive from Brighton to Scotland in 5 hours or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, about there, right? I drive 5 hours and I'm in Massachusetts, right? I mean, that's a contiguous landmass where we're all the same, right? When you get that big, I think the thing that's most interesting is that people in my worlds of journalism, and this is true, this is the truth that the people out there in the sort of, what is derisively called flyover country, they're right about this. We have no understanding of them at all. None whatsoever. It's such a curious thing to people, and it goes both ways. There's like the effete liberals who are, everybody's bringing their kids to like trans, readings at the library or something. That's what people actually think. And then you go out there and like, why? There are all these crazy people with guns. It's like, yeah, actually, they're not the problem with the guns. They're actually not. They're not. I mean, they might be the problem politically if you're trying to fight against, the NRA or any lobbies that support looser gun laws. But as far as the people that are problematic with guns, I mean, they don't live in Chicago. I mean, there was 56 shootings in Chicago last weekend. I mean, that was 2 weeks ago. I haven't checked this week because it was Memorial Day. I decided not to look at the Chicago shootings for 1 week. But, they're generally, that's where it's happening, And when you hear mass shootings, I mean, they're not mostly, kids in schools. They're mostly 6 people getting shot in gang violence in the south side of Chicago, But so we don't really have an understanding of who the other people are. And then the polarization. Look, I think it's better that we don't have 3 channels for news anymore. I mean, you had that in the UK. I lived in Sweden for a long time. It was only until the 90s that the Swedes had more than 3 channels, right? Early 90s. Because there's regulations against having more channels. We have more now, but good God, does it really set us on these separate paths? I mean, there's no doubt about that. You can say it's a good thing or a bad thing. I like more choice. That's another one of my ideologies. Choice is a very good thing. But, people play in their like cloistered little corners, and nobody has any interaction with the other people. And that's a problem. I mean, particularly when I go out and talk to people. I mean, I've been to so many Trump rallies just as a journalist. And it's just like these people, they're all so nice. Every crew I've ever had, like, they're the nicest people in the world. Everyone's so nice. They try to understand you, but they don't know anything.
I went to a Trump rally. I loved it.
It was fun, wasn't it?
Great. I think the people are brilliant. I loved, but I also love a lot of like traditional Southern US culture.
Yeah,
I like country music. I
Yeah.
don't like and listen to it, but I like the experience. of it.
Yeah.
I like whiskey. We're going to Nashville, and I can't fucking wait.
It's really fun.
Yeah,
It's actually really fun too.
I like Republican people. I think they're fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I don't agree with them on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And I tend to sometimes find I agree with Democrat people on a lot of things politically, but I also then find I sometimes don't want to spend time with them. There's like this weird kind of.
My ex is Swedish, and we've came to America. The first time was in the mid 2000s. And we're talking to these people at a party in Brooklyn. It was absolutely perfect. And, she's like, social democrat, lefty, art school, the rest of it. And we're talking to this woman, and she starts going off about this guy that she went on a date with or whatever. It was very kind of Curb Your Enthusiasm. And she's like, I found out he was a fucking Republican, and like looked at Joanna. And she came back to me and says, just swear to God, she was like, how did he know, she know that I wasn't a Republican? Like, why did she just presume that I would agree with this kind of deep hatred, not even a dislike or like, I don't know if I can deal with this. Like, can you believe it? I met somebody like, it's like Eichmann in Jerusalem. This is like a Nazi in a glass box ready to be tried. And she was like, why is that? And I was like, well, you're in Brooklyn. We're in our little places. We don't talk to those people or about those people. And she ended up kind of like you. I mean, like really like enjoyed like Southern culture because it was just like hospitable, like politically very different. I mean, I'm sure it's not something that she's wants to vote based on, but it's just like, there's a very weird thing in New York that I've always felt at dinner parties. It's always a great place to go. And I don't say much anymore, but I used to be a total fucking asshole. I'd go in there and like here the trick is do this. Go to a dinner party, like, I really can't fucking stand. I had these fucking Christians, and everyone's like, oh, I know. Now just replace that with a different religion and see if you can get through the dinner party. Like, I really can't fucking stand Muslims. And everyone's just like, excuse me? The silverware planks on the table, like, get out. It's time for you to go. And it's like, these things, everything is so fraught. And there's just a code that you have to adhere to, whether you know it or not, and whether they know it or not. There's just this kind of natural code for how to exist in certain urban centers in America. And I find it very suffocating sometimes. I mean, mirrors some of my views and like the music I listen to, the novels I read, et cetera. I mean, I grew up in Massachusetts, for fuck's sake. I mean, this is not alien to me. But I do like getting out from it because people who say, I just really like to travel. I just want to go to different cultures. It's like, you don't want to meet Americans who are different than you, but you do want to go to like Swaziland and pretend that like, this is amazing, these different cultures. Like, you don't like that. And that's the thing, that being around people in the US who have different opinions has become such a weird sport